5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is the Culture Clash.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Culture Clash here on the Fandom Podcast Network. But this is no ordinary live show of Culture Clash. Oh, no. It is time to start Ahsoka Watch 2023. That's right. Ahsoka is here, and we are going to be discussing everything about the first two episodes that dropped this past Tuesday. But I can't talk about Ahsoka alone. I need other Jedi. I need other Sith. I need some Padawans in this mix. And I'm going to start off with the man who saw Ahsoka before many of us, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
What is going on?
How are you, sir?
I'm wearing my Ahsoka celebration shirt. Thought it would be fitting, so there you go. Yeah,
Very, very, very fitting. And you know what? But you know what? It's Ahsoka. We need more voices. And
Yes, we
luckily,
do.
at the last minute, we were able to bring in a good friend of our network. Of course, he is host of the Star Wars Stuff podcast, and I actually joined him for his pre-show before Ahsoka came out. It is the one and only David Lozano. David,
What's up, everyone?
you are joining us from your sand speeder on Tatooine, I see.
Yeah, but am I a Jedi, Sith, Master, Padawan?
Gray Jedi. I'm kind of feeling gray Jedi. Is your blade orange?
I haven't checked it in a while. I don't know.
But no, we're excited to be talking Ahsoka. We're glad to have you here, David. Thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to join us.
Appreciate that, sir.
But however,
As you
in
can
this
tell,
episode,
traffic held me up.
yeah, well, you know, it's those damn Jawas always causing problems, stealing hubcaps, all those kind of things. But we are going to be going into a deep dive into the first two episodes of Ahsoka. Mr. Rachel, there we go. Spoiler alert. We are going to be going in deep. We're going to be talking a lot about aspects of Ahsoka. If you have not watched these episodes yet, which, you know, hopefully you have, understand it comes out in the middle of the week. You might not get it till the weekend. Go watch those first two episodes and come back and join us, whether it's on YouTube or on our podcast version of this show, and join us for our conversation. If you're here on the YouTube live now, please leave your comments and thoughts as we're going along. We want you to be interactive and part of the conversation as well. But guys, we have an absolutely huge show for us talking Ahsoka. But before we actually get into the episodes of Ahsoka, Mr. Reitzel, you attended a very special event regarding Ahsoka.
Yeah, I am part of the 501st. I believe, David, you are as well. This, I'm assuming that this came about mostly because of the strike, that the actors and creators of these shows weren't going to be participating in any red carpet or anything like that. So they decided to basically make these fan events for Ahsoka preview nights. And there was one down in Hollywood at the famous El Capitan Theater right there on Hollywood Boulevard. And right across the street from it is the famous Mann's Chinese Theater. And this theater, El Capitan, is the official Disney theater. It is owned by Disney, and that's where they have all of the red carpet events. They also showcase a lot of the costumes that are worn by the event. And being a member of the 501st, there was a member that had some tickets that were allocated. And I was able to throw my hand up there quickly, and I submitted my name and an email, and I got the electronic invite, and we made a whole day of it, an afternoon night down there. And in this picture here, you can kind of see people lining up for registration. All the tickets were free, which was nice, and also the concession stand. You had free popcorn, free bottled drinks. You can get refills if you wanted to, and people started showing up in costume with their lightsabers, which was a lot of fun. And they had picture opportunities, and they also had lots of lightsabers, people getting ready to show up for lightsabers. They gave away free Ahsoka lightsabers. I had mine here, got this one here. Check this out. Oh, yeah, nice and pretty cool. This is part of a Ahsoka 2-pack that you can purchase of both their lightsabers for around $70, and they were just taking those toys and just giving them out to people, which was a lot of fun. And they had a little costume contest, which was a lot of fun. and it was really, really cool. And I sat in the balcony right in the front row because that I've been to the theater before. It's got state of the art sound, state of the art projection screen and everything, and it was a lot of fun. I was with my fellow 501st. A lot of them showed up, and they had a bunch of people in costume come up, which was really great too. And just down the street, they have the Scum and Villainy Cantina. So we ended our night there. We all went and hung out at the Star Wars themed bar owned by my friend J.C. Reifenberg, and that was a lot of fun. It was really, really cool. Fun, a moment to be part of.
Very cool, and it was such a cool event. And Kevin, you happened to be there. I know for a fact with all the other well-known podcasters, a couple of the members of the Midnight Boys from the Ringer podcast, Van Lathan was there, Jomi the Explainer, Steve Almond. So you were in high-class podcasting.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to meet them. I'm sure I just missed them, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, and the energy was high, and it was nice because those first two episodes felt very cinematic. And I was missing seeing Star Wars on the big screen, especially when I went back, when I went down to Hollywood months ago with my wife to go see the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi on the big screen, realizing I really want to see Star Wars on the big screen again. And this kind of gave me that fix because both these episodes, as I said, felt like they could have been a hour and 38-minute movie. And I got that feeling with it. It was really nice to see with a big group of Star Wars fans too.
That's awesome. Also, too, we are talking about Ahsoka, which this is a pretty big deal for Star Wars. I think this has been one of the most anticipated releases in Star Wars since Disney has taken over. And as we have up on our screen, we see the evolution of Ahsoka from her introduction from the original Clone Wars film all the way through to the current Ahsoka series. Of course, Ahsoka really being a character who, for a lot of Star Wars fans, is their primary Star Wars character. They've grown up with Ahsoka over the years, and you see her starting from as a young Padawan through her growth through Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars to her first live-action appearance in The Mandalorian to her appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, and finally now to the Ahsoka we see on our screen for the Ahsoka series.
I feel that, and I want to ask David this. I feel like Ahsoka is one of the most rounded out, fleshed out characters because she's had so much screen time, so much backstory, so much story to tell than a lot of the more famous Star Wars characters. What is your thought about that, David?
Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, I'm totally not jealous of you, Kevin. But yeah, back to Ahsoka. So yeah, she is one of the most concentrated on, most popular characters in Star Wars, and of a certain generation, definitely. All the kids that grew up watching her in the Clone Wars are now adults now and have adult money, and Disney is well aware of this. And I like the character personally. I didn't really grow up with her. When they kind of introduced her, I was already married with kids going to elementary school, so I was concentrating on that really when the Clone Wars dropped. So at some points I couldn't afford cable to watch the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network. But I was aware of the character. I was aware that she was Anakin's Padawan, and all the kind of controversy with the Clone Wars movie that came out. It seems like nobody liked the introduction of Ahsoka as a young Padawan, but they grew to love her in Clone Wars, and now she's one of the most beloved characters, and might be going forward one of the most important characters in Star Wars history. So we shall see.
I want to give a shout out to my friend Trey. He actually called me a couple hours ago, and he's like, "Dude, I got questions. What's with some of these characters in Ahsoka? I don't know who they are." And he had not seen Rebels, and so I was giving Trey a little advice, saying, "Look, there is some crucial episodes of Rebels and or Clone Wars you could watch to get caught up in some of this, so make sure you check that out." He's like, "All right, I'm just gonna watch all the Rebels right now." So he's marathoning them right now, which I thought is awesome.
That's not Trey Lance, is it?
No.
Okay.
He's busy studying his new playbook, but so Ahsoka has definitely come a long way from her introduction, where she was Little Nips along with Sky Guy. And she become, like you said, Kevin, I think, and David, one of the most beloved characters, I think, in Star Wars history, to be honest. And we are finally getting her own show with Star Wars Ahsoka, and things kicked off a little early. Disney released this a day early at a reasonable time for everybody to watch it, not at midnight.
David, I wanted to ask you about that. First of all, has it been confirmed that this is going to be for the rest of the season? Are we getting these now dropping on Tuesday nights?
Well, the reports I've seen were episodes, plural. So I'm thinking it's going to be every Tano Tuesday that we're going to get these shows. So it's actually something we've been begging for on the Star Wars Stuff podcast, because I'm in Central Time. I have to stay up till 2 a.m. for it to drop. You guys were lucky, Pacific Time, midnight. And then we had people on the East Coast time where they'd have to stay up either until 3 a.m. or wake up early before they go to work to watch these shows. So I'm elated, and I'm getting older, and I can't do that anymore. So
I like it because it feels like that Thursday night must-see TV primetime thing. You're ready to watch it at dinner time with the family. So yeah, I'm with you on that. So
I think it's a brilliant move, and I actually hope it's something Disney keeps doing going forward with not only Ahsoka, but we got Loki season 2 coming up. Any of these big shows that are on Disney Plus streaming, it's just so much easier when they come out at a time where I think everybody can watch them, and I think it's more beneficial for a lot of people too. It gets the discussion going, and I think they get more eyes on it at once. But I'm just thankful for it. My sleep pattern is much more thankful for it. But Kevin, let's kick things off, and I'm going to do one more time because, again, we're going to be talking deep into these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. So one last time. Spoiler warnings. We're going to be spoiling a lot of happenings here very shortly on the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. So if you have not watched the episodes, go watch the episodes, come back and join us. But Kevin, would you care to give us the plot synopsis for the first episode of Ahsoka, Master and Apprentice?
Of course. All right. Baylan Skoll and his apprentice Shin Hati assault a New Republic cruiser carrying Lady Morgan Elsbeth, who had been previously captured by Ahsoka Tano. The pair rescue Lady Elsbeth, who informs Skoll that Ahsoka is searching for Thrawn. Ahsoka and Huang obtain a star map to the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and by extension, Ezra Bridger, before being informed that Lady Elsbeth escaped by Home One. Regrouping with the fleet, Ahsoka meets with General Hera Syndulla, where Huang reveals that the star map is still locked. Syndulla advises Ahsoka to obtain Sabine Wren's help unlocking the map. Just as Wren unlocks the map, she's informed by Shin, who steals the map and stabs Wren during the duel. Note, this episode was dedicated in memory of Ray Stevenson, who died sometime after working on the show.
Okay, guys. First reactions to the first episode. Obviously, we had the episodes back to back, but because they did split them up, they didn't join them together. I'm curious, David. I could not make your after show for Star Wars stuff. So, what were your impressions of the first episode of Ahsoka, Master and Apprentice?
It was a little slower than I thought it was going to be. I was thinking Filoni, from studying at the feet of the master, George Lucas, it was going to be fast and intense. But it was very much plotting, and they took a lot of pauses, it seemed like, between the dialogue. And I'm fine with that. I mean, they got to kind of set it up. I prefer longer episodes. I prefer to spend more time with Star Wars characters and have it take its time. And I think we all know that Filoni is going to have a really good story that he's trying to tell. And whatever he does, I just want to let him do it because I know it's going to be great. But the ending, though, it really did kind of shock me a little bit when Sabine got stabbed, and I started thinking, okay, well, did she just die? Because maybe the rest of the show is flashbacks of Sabine with the different haircut. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but of course, the next episode kind of told us that no, it was a very fortuitous lightsaber stab. But yeah, other than that, I mean, getting to see Lothal in live action was fantastic. Getting to see that really complex animatronic they really kind of talked about in articles was super cool to see. And the Lothcat that I have from Galaxy's Edge looks nothing like that Lothcat, so I'm gonna have to buy a new Lothcat. But yeah, just to see Natasha Liu Bordizzo's acting and the way she portrayed Sabine. I thought it was spot on. I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead also was spot on as Harrison Dula. And Ahsoka, we'd already seen her in The Mandalorian season 2. I knew Rosario Dawson was good to go. So I liked it overall. I liked what Filoni gave us. So overall, I liked the introduction. The thing that I kind of was thinking about was for the general audiences. They're going to watch this and be kind of lost because it feels like everyone had to have watched Rebels to really kind of get their head around what was actually taking place, because you're essentially dropping people into a world that a lot of other people are really familiar with, but it's very, very akin to being dropped into 1977 episode 4 A New Hope. So there's precedence for it.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that particular topic a little later in the show too, David. But Kevin, what about you? What were your first impressions of episode 1?
First of all, when they did the dedicated memory to Ray Stevenson, the place erupted in applause, which was really, really cool. And so I was kind of on this emotional ride watching this. And you could just feel the energy inside the theater. And so I was going through a little bit different experience. I didn't notice the pacing at all. I was kind of just, if someone wasn't talking, I was looking over their shoulder into the background and checking out, like, the sets and because I thought the sets and the visual effects were really, really good. And to me, it felt, I thought it was paced okay. I was really invested in finding out, okay, oh crap, Sabine just got her butt kicked. I wasn't expecting that, but I was just like, okay, let's start episode 2. What about you, Kyle?
I'm like David. I thought it did feel a little slow paced. Not that was a bad thing. I actually think that was a good thing in the aspect of, especially with the choices Filoni made about for people who hadn't watched Rebels or things like that. It kind of eased people in so they just weren't thrown into everything right away. And I think that might have been a right choice. I really enjoyed the episode. I thought that obviously the portrayals were very well done. Ray Stevenson, from his first moment on screen, just there's a weight to that character, and I can't wait to get more into that character. One of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if other people have, is it feels like Rosario is even playing this version of Ahsoka, which is an older version of Ahsoka from what we saw in Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. She's playing her different than even how she played her in those 2 series, which I like because there's more times passed, more things have happened that we are slowly becoming aware of. It just felt like this Ahsoka,
she's more jaded.
That's a good one. Well, jaded, but just isn't, at least from the early on, Ahsoka, one of the big things with that character, even no matter how serious she got in the animated series, and I think even in the introduction of Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, there was like a little bit of a fun factor with her. And here is just right now, she's just so dead serious and kind of Thrawn obsessed that I think that's just an interesting choice. But I actually like the idea of that choice because it shows, again, that one of the great things about Ahsoka is this character is always evolving. She's not the same every time you see her. There's always been subtle changes with her, and I think that was continuing in this episode as well.
I did want to mention we had some cameos in the first episode. When I was watching this in the theater, I'm going, why does that guy look so darn familiar? I was like, oh, that's the guy from Aliens. That is actor Mark Ralston, who played Private Drake, looking good. Didn't last too long. But so that was kind of cool. And then also we got, this guy, Clancy Brown. He reprised his character Ryder Azadi from Star Wars Rebels, this time in live action. He's also been part of Star Wars and other characters. He's voiced Savage Opress in Clone Wars and the Inquisitor in Tales of the Jedi. And in live action, he's played Berg in chapter 6 of The Prisoner in the Mandalorian. So it was nice to see him back in Star Wars.
Kevin, I have a question about that. Does his appearance here in Star Wars mean that lightsabers can be a weapon used by immortals?
Yes, but apparently you all people who get hit by lightsabers are immortal. We'll get into that later. I did also want to share, I love these character posters that we've been seeing out there and such before we get to the next episode. These just look really, really cool. And I kind of want to ask you guys, if you were to have one of these in like a full life-size poster, which one are you taking, David?
Man, it's hard to go against Chopper, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I failed to talk about Balin Skull and Shin Hati. They were a fantastic introduction to some fantastic villains and new additions to Star Wars. Just the presence that the late great Ray Stevenson has on screen as Balin Skull. He essentially looks like Vader without the helmet, really, walking through that hallway. And just his really precise skill with the orange bladed lightsaber going down the hallway, dispatching everyone. Another hallway scene. So yeah, rescuing Morgan Elsbeth. And then Shin Hati, it seems like she's very, very loyal. She has the Padawan braid that no one, it seems like, picked up on in any of the marketing material. So essentially she is Balin's Padawan, and I'm really interested to learning more about these characters. But yeah, it's I don't know, Balin and probably Chopper's character posters. Those are the two maybe best looking, maybe the two I'd want to put on my wall.
What about you, Kyle?
I'm with David. It's kind of hard to pass on Chopper, but I'm always down to having a Sabine or an Ahsoka too.
I like I'm digging the Harrison Dula one. That one's pretty darn cool.
Well, with that, let's get into episode 2. Kevin, are you feeling like doing a little Toil and Trouble for us?
Yeah, let's do it. Toil and Trouble, episode 2, chapter 2, I guess what they're saying is. All right. Ren recovers and informs Ahsoka of her findings. Ren also traces the droids that attacked her previously to Lady Elsbeth's factories on Corellia. Seeking the star map, Ahsoka and Syndulla travel to the Corellian shipyards in time to see a massive hyperdrive built for Elsbeth's ship to travel to Thrawn's hiding place. The hyperdrive escapes to hyperspace after Chopper attaches a tracking device. After arresting some rebels and spies for the Empire, Ahsoka is contacted by Ren, who is ready to become her Padawan again and find Bridger. Elsbeth is contacted by Skull and Hati and Marok, who obtain the hyperdrive so they can finish building the Eye of Sion and find Admiral Thrawn.
Things start picking up a little bit in this episode, and there's some interesting things going on. Kevin, I'm going to go to you first. What were your thoughts on this episode?
You know, I was really drawn to what was happening with Elsbeth and her hired dark force users, and I thought that was really, really cool. And then we got a really good fight scene with Ahsoka and the droids, and it was nice to see Hera flying around again in what's the smaller ship called again that she flies?
Phantom.
The Phantom, that's right.
The Phantom,
and then, of
2,
course,
right?
What's that?
The Phantom 2?
Yeah, Phantom 2.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And then seeing Chopper doing Chopper things, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was great. It was kind of stepping up, and seeing it on the big screen for the first time, I really felt that these two, you could have just taken out the credits in the middle and put them together in one film and then put all the credits at the end. I thought they rolled together really well and then just set you up for the next adventure. And so that's the way I was kind of feeling it after I finished these originally for the first time. What about you, David?
I liked it. It was faster, more intense. Like I said, we got to see the lightsaber battle between Merrick and HK Droid and Ahsoka on Corellia, of all places. It seems like Corellia is really kind of the Detroit of the galaxy. They build all kinds of stuff there. They dismantle stuff there. And it was cool to see how many Imperial loyalists that still kind of existed in this time frame. And that fight was pretty cool. And the way that Ahsoka kind of reacted to the blade coming back, boomeranging back to Merrick when he was on the ramp of the ship was pretty cool to see that she's that confident in her abilities. But I mean, it's Ahsoka, so I mean, she's maybe one of the most powerful Jedis out there. But to see the sequence with Hera flying the Phantom 2 with Chopper's first introduction in live action. In the show, we all know we saw him in Rogue One, rolling in the back, and the Harrison Dula's name being called on the intercom system in Rogue One. But to see his interaction, I mean, it was so spot on with the animation. The voice, of course, voiced by Dave Filoni, and his mannerisms, and he did like the whole kind of muscle with his droid arms pose in the sequence, and it was great. And to kind of put together the logic behind Elsbeth getting the hyperdrive, which was for a super star destroyer, and putting it on her hyperdrive ring that she has for the ship, and then the very interesting holograms that we got of Balin, Shin, and Merrick. It almost looked like it was like a dust combination of dust and light projection that we've never seen in Star Wars in live action before, I don't think. So that was interesting. But overall, I think we're building up, and I think we're really building up to maybe Filoni's directed 5th episode. But I think as we go, it's going to get faster, more intense. And I think Steph Green directs the next episode. She directed episode 2. Dave Filoni directed episode 1. So I'm just ready for more Ahsoka, more live action Star Wars. It looked great visually, fantastic, top notch visual effects. Score was great by the Kiner brothers. It was Rebel season 5 essentially, but in live action, which I'm a live action super fan of Star Wars.
Glad you brought up the soundtrack. That was really cool to experience in a theater, and that it just went right through your soul. Kyle, your thoughts after seeing this second episode?
I really liked it. I'm glad they picked up the pace, and I'm hoping that's the continuing trend for this show, is that every episode kind of picks up the pace more and more. There's a few things too that after watching this episode and then going back and rewatching it again combined, there's a few questions that I have actually. And David, I'm glad you're here because maybe you can help me clear up one. Everybody calls Ahsoka a Jedi, but technically she isn't. She never finished her training, and I am kind of shocked she doesn't correct them.
Once a Jedi, always a Jedi.
She was never a Jedi. That's the point.
Yeah. Pardon the pun, but she's kind of in the gray space of being called a Jedi.
She was a Jedi. She just left the Order.
Right.
Right. She left the order before she did her final test.
Yeah, you'll hear arguments from different people saying yes, no, yay, no. So all the marketing material says a Jedi this, a Jedi that. I think that's really for the uninitiated, the normies out there that aren't quite sure what they're seeing. All they know they're seeing is a Jedi, a good guy with lightsabers. There's going to be lightsaber action. But to me, I don't classify Ahsoka as a Jedi. She's just a good Force user. But we've heard Filoni and George Lucas, great Jedi. You're either a Jedi or a Sith. So I don't know if that's ever going to change, if it's going to evolve. That would be kind of cool if it eventually does. So, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. And yeah, a lot of people really haven't picked up on that, Kyle. But I really saw that and I was like, wait a minute. I think that was just general marketing.
Two other questions I have. One, is the New Republic the stupidest government of all time? Because come on. I mean, between what we saw in Andor and what we've seen now in these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, and even what we saw at the end of The Mandalorian and episodes of The Mandalorian, I mean, I'm just blown away. It's no wonder things end up the way they do by the time Force Awakens starts, because these guys have no clue.
Yeah, the pompous attitude, the cockiness of the pilot, the guy that was in Aliens. Yeah, it was wild to see that. And it's like, why would you let an unknown ship with a Jedi clearance code board if they are Jedi, or if they're basically lying? It's like, why would you let anyone that's nefarious on board? It only takes 6 troopers with you. Although, I mean, I think they kind of assume at this point, because it's after Return of the Jedi, that there's not any Jedi left or Force users left, really. So I don't know. You really kind of have to dig deep to figure all that out. But yeah, I agree with you, Kevin, that it's, or Kyle, that it was kind of weird how that all went down. But I'll let it go. I'll let it pass.
Kevin, are you in with me on this?
Yeah, they've set some precedents, of course, in Mandalorian, and I think it's important to show that when you don't learn from your past, you're going to repeat the mistakes that you made. And
That's a golden rule, man.
Yeah, they just they're not taking this threat seriously enough, and they think that they've defeated the bad guys and they're gone and done. And this is, of course, going to eventually lead to other things. So yeah.
And one more thing, guys. I have one more question because I'm very curious of your opinions on this. Baylan and Shin, I do not believe they are true Sith because I think they are something else. The orange blades, the fact that Baylan still talks about old Jedi ways, and he's obviously training Shin with some old Jedi ways. Here he talks about how he really doesn't like the idea of killing Ahsoka. Are these kind of maybe more Jedis who just have gone kind of rogue and just become almost like mercenary Jedi in a sense to where they're not following the traditional ways of the Jedi because of what happened to the Jedi and are maybe starting their own path? But they don't feel like Sith either. Yes, they've been paid by this person who's a witch of Denethor, but I mean, they just don't feel like Sith to me either.
I think that with Order 66 becoming a thing, I think too what happened with Ahsoka probably happened with a lot of other Jedi, where they didn't like they didn't like what was happening. Maybe some of them weren't given a chance, and or maybe they were captured or what have you. But I think that there might be some other Jedi out there that are feeling what Ahsoka did. The Jedi failed them and couldn't get out of their own egos and decided to kind of, if you have skills like a Jedi, what can you do to make your way through the galaxy and earn some extra credits? Well, you use your skills and you get hired by the best. And people that can appreciate or utilize your skills and to get what they want. And I kind of feel that Baylan's kind of falls under that category. I don't think he's a Sith per se. I don't think he follows that. I could be wrong, but to me, I think that however he found Shin, maybe Shin was his Padawan when he was a Jedi at a time. I don't know how the age difference there, but I think that they obviously are on each other's side and protecting each other, kind of like a little family, but doing it for money.
David, what do you think?
I thought it was a really cool concept. Mercenary Jedis. I hadn't thought about that as an adult. Maybe I did as a kid, but it's a really cool concept. And I'm right there with Kevin that they're not dark. I mean, they're not Sith. They are dark, but the Padawan braid, the lack of Sith eyes, the lack of the showing of empathy when Morgan Elsbeth says we need to kill Ahsoka, essentially in so many words, and Baylan says that would be a shame to kill such a great Jedi. So we all got the signs, the dialogue, and then the orange lightsabers are not red; they're orange, confirmed by Dave Filoni. So all of that leads us to believe that these guys aren't Sith. More to the theme that we don't have a Jedi in Ahsoka and we don't have Sith in Baylan and Shin. So it's maybe evolving. It's maybe it's gonna please some of these fans that want these gray Jedi so badly. But you have to assume, I mean, there's Force users out there that don't even know they're using the Force, but they're using it, and they're not Jedi. So it just depends on what their kind of moral compass is. And Baylan and Shin is more on the darker side, and Ahsoka's more on the lighter side. And I think it's wise to take Star Wars in this direction, because that's more true to life than either absolute good or absolute bad. So I think it's interesting. I love the concept.
I think surviving Jedis, whether you are distancing yourself from the Jedi code that had collapsed, if you've got Jedi skills, this is kind of your time if you think about it. Because you don't have the power of the Empire hunting you down now, so you kind of do what you want, and no one's going to mess with you. If they do, good luck, So if you're going to make some extra money at it, you can go that way, or you can become a protector and work like Ahsoka does. But you kind of have a new foot in the galaxy, not necessarily a power, but maybe so.
So, guys, I want we've talked about the episodes themselves. I want to talk about the cast a little bit. Was there anybody in these first 2 episodes who really stood out to you, or just was like a scene stealer to you, or just really left an impression after these first 2 episodes? David?
I think I'm pleased with everyone. Like I mentioned earlier, we all knew what Rosario Dawson was going to offer, which was a solid Ahsoka character. I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead did a really great job as kind of the mediator between her and Sabine, and I thought she was fantastic as Hera. Natasha Liu Bordizzo was really solid as Sabine. I heard all the reviews praising her. I was expecting a little bit more out of her, but I think she was pitch perfect as Sabine. And we talked about Baylan and Shin, 2 brand new characters. Didn't know what to expect from them, but I think they pulled off what Filoni wanted them to pull off. And we've seen Morgan Elsbeth before. I think everyone was solid. I guess for me, the standout maybe would be Mary Elizabeth Winstead, another one of the McGregor clan in Star Wars. So, yeah, she was excellent.
The true power couple of Star Wars. What about you, Kevin? Who in the cast may have stood out for you a little bit more than anybody else?
Definitely Sabine's character. I really liked, and I got to tell you, I'm going to miss the long hair. I like the long hair look. I thought Sabine really stood out for me, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Syndulla was also really good. I think those were probably my top 2. What about you, Kyle?
Mary Elizabeth Winstead absolutely nailed Hera without even a question. I think that was probably, as far as channeling the character the most, I think she did a beautiful job with that. Natasha Liu Bordizzo was great as Sabine. But I actually want to give out a shout out to David Tennant as Huang, because I love how he carried this character and voiced this character, and just how he handled the droid itself being this fountain of knowledge of Jedi, but also just calling it like he sees it. When he talks about Sabine being like a 3.5 Jedi scale, and just how she just doesn't have that noticeable Jedi, and being just brutally honest with her. But I love the fact that they brought this character back as kind of Ahsoka's foil in a way, being this dead straight droid. And yet, like in the opening, when she's like, "You could have flown a little closer." Yeah, but if I flew closer, I would have been in the range of the explosion. I love those little moments, and Tenet, I think, just brought a great fun with that character as well. So, but guys, one last thing. You talked about it earlier, Kevin, that obviously we lost Ray Stevenson shortly after this series was finished filming, thankfully, in that aspect. But it was so great to see them give you the tribute. And David, you mentioned it too. When Ray Stevenson's on screen, his presence, I think, just outshines everybody else at this point. The appreciation you have, and yes, you are carrying more emotion because you know he has passed away. But even still, just even as that character, if Ray was still with us, I think I would still be feeling the same way. It's just he's on screen, and it's just like he's just the bright sun that everybody else is just circling around as far as just that presence.
Yeah, he looked good. He sounded good. I was digging his look with the beard. And, when you watch his film work, he always was one of those characters. Even if he's a secondary character, he just commands a screen. And he's one of my favorite Punishers, too. Punisher Warzone. I thought he was great in that. There's also a good movie called Kill the Irishman, based on a true story, a character that he plays of a gangster out of, I think, Cleveland. He was really good in that, but I like him in everything that I've seen him in, and it's a huge loss that he's not with us anymore. What about you, David?
Yeah, definitely. The tribute at the end was was awesome. I'm glad they did that. And yeah, to not have him, he's a Star Wars alum, and not to have him is a huge loss, I think, for the future of Star Wars. And yeah, it's I don't even like thinking about it that we lost him, and he's giving this type of performance and having this presence. And it's like, man, it was like he was born for this role, and I think he's getting praise from everyone justifiably for just the new character that we now have. And along with Shin, I thought she was fantastic too. And it's just a shame that he passed so young. And it looked like they had very great chemistry offset. We've seen a lot of behind the scenes photos of Ray Stevenson and Ivana Sakno, who plays Shin Hati, along with Rosario Dawson, just hanging out offset. You know, they kind of had like their little Ahsoka family. And it at Celebration in London, it felt like they had a lot of camaraderie there as well, and the chemistry was there. That's what made me even more hyped up for this show. So yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just unfortunate.
Very, very much so. But we are going to keep going here. Kevin has a little Star Wars trivia for us right in.
Yes,
Okay, Mr. Reitzel.
Yep.
You opened a few holocrons. You pulled out some Star Wars trivia for us.
Yes, got some episode trivia here. So early in the first episode takes place the dedication ceremony for the mural in honor and memory of the Star Wars Rebels team. The mural is taken precisely from one of the scenes in the final episode of Star Wars Rebels, marking an interesting splicing of 2D and 3D animation into live action footage. I thought that was really cool to see that mural there. Sabine rides a 614 AVA speeder bike with a custom paint job. These bikes are based on concept art by Joe Johnson, originally created for Star Wars Return of the Jedi, and were previously seen in Star Wars Rebels in 2014. The New Republic pilots that try to intercept Sabine fly E-Wing fighters, a type of ship that first appeared in Dark Horse comic series Dark Empire in 1991. And we're going to return to that a little bit later. When the factory workers on Corellia are being taken away, Arabic text on the side of larger vehicles translate to police. Toil and Trouble, the name of the episode, is a phrase often associated with witchcraft. This episode features the first live-action appearance of Night Sister magic, powers related to dark side of the Force. And I don't know if I caught this, guys, but apparently at 18 minutes in, Chopper utters the classic Star Wars line, "I have a bad feeling about this." Did you guys catch this at all?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah,
I didn't
there's
catch it.
a couple of interesting lines Dave Filoni put into Chopper speak.
And last, which is kind of cool, and I saw this on social media, the actual picture, when Sabine is activating the memory circuit from the decapitated droid head, she uses an upside-down Galaxy Invader toy from 1978. I saw a picture of that online, which I thought was pretty cool.
Wow.
That is some great trivia, Kevin. And you know what? We're going to, after some awesome trivia, we're going to dive into some of the hot topics also of Ahsoka that we have. Okay, guys. First topic. David, you have actually brought this up a couple of times. Ahsoka. Is it Ahsoka or is it Rebels Season 5? There's obviously a lot of connections between Ahsoka and Rebels, but is it too much? I watched this with my roommate who is a huge Star Wars fan, but he's not a big animation fan. So he had not really seen Rebels. And when the episodes, he looked over at me and said, "I have a ton of questions for you." So the questions I have three questions. Does it feel more like it's Rebels Season 5? How do you feel it might come across to those who have not watched Rebels, and is it making Rebels required watching? And finally, too, I want to ask each of you guys how you felt we've seen a few characters come from animation to life, real life, Bo-Katan, for example. But how do you felt these characters came across translated? Because they are a key part of this series and a key part of Dave Filoni's section of Star Wars universe. Kevin, I actually want to start with you on this question.
I didn't think it feels like a continuation of Rebels. It's nice to see these characters. It takes place more in the future, and I'm glad that we are getting this Ahsoka show to take these beloved characters moving forward. And I love seeing the translation into live action. I love it when you go from either live action to animation or animation to live action. And I think that's really cool.
David, what about you? Yeah, you've kind of given us a few thoughts on this, but what do you think? Is this feeling more like Rebels season 5? Do people need to go back and watch Rebels? Or do you feel like this, if Ahsoka's being a jumping on point for some new Star Wars fans, does this work? And how did you feel they translated?
I'm kind of one of those in betweeners. I haven't seen all of Rebels, but I've seen a large majority of it, and I know the story. I know the big touch points in Rebels, and I've seen the last episode. Yeah, I was never really a big fan of the animation, and I'm really not an animation person, but I already knew a lot of the Rebels stuff. I was very familiar with the characters, and watching Ahsoka episode 1 and episode 2, it felt like it was a continuation of the animation, just in live action. And like I said earlier, you're dropped into it if you haven't seen the animation, and you'll have a lot of questions. But luckily, every episode of Rebels is on Disney Plus, and you can go back and watch it and get caught up if you want, which is a great luxury right now. I guess I gotta disagree with Kevin. It does feel like Rebels season 5.
You're not alone.
Was there of the characters that translated from animation to live action, was there anyone that particular you just felt like they absolutely nailed it? I think they did a pretty good job all the way around, but was there one that really stood out for you?
It almost feels like they did as good a job as they could have possibly done. I know I mentioned this earlier. Chopper was just like pulled right out of animation into live action and was basically Chopper from Rebels, which is incredible. And he translated perfectly. When Star Wars translates characters from animation to live action, there's usually a little bit of difference, but I couldn't detect it at all on Chopper, at all.
I need to see more of him rolling around next to Hera and communicating and doing stuff like that. I need to see a little more of Chopper. So yeah.
I agree with David. This does feel like a little bit of it's Ahsoka, but it's also / Rebel season 5. And I think for certain people that's a great thing. I think that you luckily Liberals is able to go back and watch, but I think you do run a little bit of a risk of throwing some people out of the show because they're a little bit confused of what's going on. Who's Ezra Bridger? Who are some of these people? And that people who haven't watched that, as you would say, that maybe the normies who don't watch everything that comes out Star Wars and maybe only watches the movies or the TV shows. Obviously, they have if they've seen Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, they have at least a little bit of an introduction to Ahsoka. So I think there's pluses and minuses to that aspect, and I think Dave is trying to do a big job of appeasing both. And I think he didn't, for the most part, he handled it pretty well. I think in these first 2 episodes, as far as translating the characters, I think he did a phenomenal job across the board. There wasn't a character that really felt out of place. I think Hera by Mary Elizabeth, who I said earlier, was spot on. Chopper, just like you said, they just pulled him right out of Rebels and plopped him there, and he was perfect. I think the character I'm most interested, because I think it's the character that's going to be the most changed, will be Ezra Bridger when we finally see him on this show. I think he's going, and I think you can justify that change, but I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. But yeah, I think this goes both ways for Rebels fans and people who haven't watched Rebels, and it's going to be interesting to see as this goes on how they play to that. But topic 3, Kevin, I almost wish we would have had a picture in the slideshow of the Black Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail for this, because it's merely a flesh wound.
We need to talk about this. Everyone else is. Yes, some people are bitching about it. We need to talk about, do lightsabers kill anymore? It's a hot topic. I even had someone message me directly who's kind of a casual Star Wars fan going, dude, what's up with the lightsabers? Do they kill anymore? Do they know something I don't know? Now, they're an energy beam, right? They're kind of a cauterizing weapon. That's what I'm going to say. But Sabine survived this. Reva survived a stab. The Grand Inquisitor survived a stab. Cal Kestis lived. Poor old Qui-Gon. He's like, back in my day when you got stabbed through the stomach, a lightsaber, you died. Poor old Han would like to chime in there as well. But, we get Maul, who gets chopped in half, and he comes back, and then finally he dies. So this guy, I thought this made me laugh. Can't wait to see this captain make a full recovery in the next episode. I thought that was funny. So I want to get your guys' take on this. Kyle, what are your thoughts? Actually, no, David, I want to ask you first. I know you've been seeing this around. Obi-Wan kind of started this talking with those two characters that got stabbed that survived. What is your thoughts on lightsabers not necessarily killing anymore when you get stabbed through the body?
Initially when I saw it, I mentioned earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, Sabine's dead. But then I thought, well, we haven't seen some of the marketing material that they've showed him. Well, she can't really, okay, we saw her get stabbed on the side, like maybe the side of where her appendix is, and that vital organ got taken out. I don't know. But the analogy I have been using is like a real world analogy that people have been shot with bullets before multiple times and have lived, but some people have been shot once and have died. It just all depends on where you get hit internally. And like you mentioned, the blade is like a cauterizing blade, so you instantly build a wall so there's no bleed out. And Shin just pulled the blade exactly out of the spot she stuck Sabine in. So that's my story, and I guess I'm sticking to that.
I like that. What about you, Kyle?
So, okay, a couple of things here. I think they've definitely taken it a little too far with surviving lightsaber stabbings, especially with the two that were in Obi-Wan. I'm sorry, no, they were aimed. They were just as bad as Qui-Gon. They should be dead. With Sabine, though, I was thinking about this after it happened and talking to some people. Where it was placed, and considering what Baylan said about killing Jedi and killing Ahsoka in episode 2, could it have been a strategic placement there? Like, okay, I know if I hit this area of the anatomy, there's a good chance I'm going to miss any vital organs, because it wasn't a dead-on like Qui-Gon was, or even how the Grand Inquisitor or Reva was stabbed. I mean, come on. Vader stabs you, you're toast. I'm sorry. If Vader's going to stab you, he's not going to let you live from it. And the same with the Inquisitor. Cal Kestis, it's a video game. You can even look. That's a little bit more interesting to the side. But with the way that Sabine, and I going back and watching and seeing where she's stabbed, I just wonder if it's a strategic. You could play it off as strategic placement because of how Baylan has taught her. So I think it's interesting, but I do think that they need to be careful, because I think they are kind of making it a little ridiculous about who. It's like nobody dies from a lightsaber. It's merely a flesh wound. The Black Knight had worse injuries from a sword in Monty Python. So I let's hopefully we get back to a powered up lightsaber. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. The speculation among fans back and forth has been quite entertaining to check on. So yeah.
Now, Kevin, you have a topic you brought up, and I think you may have stirred some nest according to some of the comments I've seen since you posted this on Facebook.
This guy, why is his face covered? Why? So we can have a dramatic reveal. Most Inquisitors we've seen have not been fully masked. Am I right? Okay, leave that with you. Could this be Ezra? How cool would it be if it was? I'm just saying. Who is this guy? We know his name, but is it his real name?
I just have a hard time believing it's Ezra, because Ezra's the whole point of this is Ezra's with Thrawn, and we know we're going to see Thrawn. What if Yeah, but that as one, I just have a hard time seeing Ezra converted to the dark side. I think that would be Just honestly, I'm gonna be straight up. I think Ezra on the dark side as an Inquisitor would
Okay.
just be horrible.
If you say no to that theory, then who do you think this is? Why is his face covered for a dramatic reveal? Would you say?
I think it's probably a character we already know, and there is a lot of speculation. This might actually be the Star Killer character from the classic Force Awakens, or for the video games series from that played on PS3. And I think it could be they have been digging enough from the legends that it could be a lot. I think there's a lot chance it could be a lot of characters that we haven't seen yet. But I just don't. I'm not feeling the Ezra.
David, what do you say?
I think it being Ezra would be a little bit too on the nose and too predictable. It could be Kanan.
Wait, back up. You cut out again.
I said being Ezra would be a little bit too predictable. I think it could be Kanan.
How did Kanan's character end in Rebels? I can't remember.
No, he was killed in Rebels.
Right, but we all know this show deals with the world between worlds. So what if that's utilized and they pull out Kanan before he dies?
Kanan was blind too. Interesting. Not buying it.
Yeah, being Ezra is a little too on the nose, I think. I mean, that would be like, okay, well, we all predicted that.
Well, okay. His face is covered. I'm just saying. There's going to be a reveal.
Yeah. You would figure. But, I mean, there might not be a reveal. I mean, it just might be another Inquisitor that's named after a Nordic wolf that Filoni loved in literature. I don't know.
We got to make him look cool. Give him a cool mask.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely one of the interesting questions as we go along with Ahsoka. But Kevin, too, one of your favorite times is here. It's time for the fun factor moment.
Fun factor, yes. Okay, so David, we have this section where we call the fun factor of the episode. In this case, we got two to talk about. What was the fun factor for you? You're our guest. We'd like you to go first. What just made you go, oh, man, I love that. That was cool.
I love seeing the old school shot of not so much Ahsoka and her ship, but seeing the New Republic ship with the X-Wings fly around it. And I think that was the same ship that we saw in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, Home One. Yeah, it was Home One. Yeah,
so seeing that in live action again, it brings back so many fond memories. And that to me is Star Wars. When you see that and you see the X-Wings flying around and you see the big like Republic or Rebel ships, that was like, we're back. I'm back home right now. The lightsaber fighting, I'm always a big fan of that as well, and I think they did a good job with that. Other kind of like fist punch or air punching moments. I think the chopper stuff was like pitch perfect.
Nice.
And when they actually played rock music while Sabine was in her speeder, that was kind of interesting. We got rock music in live action Star Wars. I know we got it in Visions, but we have rock music now in live action. I'm not quite sure if they played any in Andor. They played more techno stuff in Andor, but that was pretty cool to hear. And I believe it was from the lead singer of Illuminati Hottie.
I have information on that because that is one of my fun moments. Was the song Sabine was listening to in Ahsoka is titled Igya Ka and is performed by the Illuminati Hotties Sarah Tudzin. It was composed by Kevin Kiner, Ludwig Göransson, Dina Kiner, and Noah Gorlick.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yes. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my fun moment was obviously I love this scene here. I love her listening to it. Someone called it a ripoff from Star Trek 2009, where you get young Kirk jamming out on the car, listening to Beastie Boys, which is fine with me because I like that. I love getting some rock music in Star Wars. I thought it was great. My other fun moment was seeing the E-Wing here, guys. This was really, really cool. Going way back from when it first appeared in Dark Horse Comics. It was in 91, I think, as we mentioned earlier in the trivia. This is a really cool looking ship, and I just thought that scene was great. Really, really enjoyed that. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Kyle, what about you? What was your fun moment?
Well, since I have two of them that roam around where I live, they would probably eat my toes off in the middle of the night if I didn't say the Loft Cat.
Loft Cats!
Awesome.
Of course, I if you have watched any videos on YouTube, you might have seen one of my two cats hanging around in the background. But the Loft Cat is cool. I need a Star Wars short, A Day in the Life of the Loft Cat. I think that'd be fun. I mean, it was such an important. It's actually a very important part of the Rebels lore too. So to see this in live action, to see how it interacted with Sabine, and it was one of those things pulled from Rebels that I just love, because they could have left it alone, and they didn't, and they gave us this thing. Of course, as David said, now he has to find the new version plushie of the Lost Cat.
Yeah, I bought one. There was like a couple of them, or 2 or 3 of them versions that you could buy at Star Wars Celebration. I want to say either London, like years ago, or in Germany, and I couldn't remember where I bought it. Maybe it was the one in previous London, not the most recent one. But I bought one, and I was trying to find it after I saw this episode. I'm like, damn, I don't know where it is. I couldn't find my Loft Cat. But I'm sure they'll have very cuddly ones at Galaxy's Edge you can get. So, yeah.
Yeah, and those are clearly 2 different species, because this species' face looks different. That's the species that was in The Mandalorian, and if you look at its feet, they're not webbed like the one in Ahsoka is. So
yeah,
there's a big argument we had on the Star Stuff podcast about, do the Loft Cats have webbed toes? And I was like, no, they don't, because I remember that specific Loft Cat, and looking at its legs and toes, they almost look like chicken feet. So
yeah.
Well, that is going to wrap up the fun of Ahsoka. But we got a few other things to talk about, guys. There's been a little bit of news in fandom, so
Let's news.
okay, guys. News piece number 1, and I think this is actually very important considering the strikes that are going on and how things have been flowing out. Dune 2 has now been delayed until March 15th, 2024. To me, this is one of the big shoe drops that this strike isn't going to be ending anytime soon, and we're looking at the long haul, because I think Dune is the biggest movie left on the schedule for the year, and is the movie that I think really did not want to get moved. I think the only other one that to me screams like, okay, if it gets moved, we're in real trouble, is the Marvels, and Disney and the MCU studios have said we're not moving it. It's staying right where it is. But Dune 2 getting moved, guys, this is a big deal. This was the big movie for the rest of the year. They've already put a ton of marketing in it. Heck, an issue of Empire magazine came out today with multiple Dune covers. This does not bode well for our strike situation, Kevin.
Yeah, a quick shout out to Ghostbusters Quick Response Unit. He's liked the music for Sabine as well. I hope they are careful with using it in the future. Good point. As for Dune, I think it's very important for fans to know that reason why this was probably done is that the promotional tour that stars do on radio, talk shows is crucial to the promotion of a film. And a lot of times it's also put into the contract. When you sign a contract to do these films, you are required to do a press tour and promotional packets for it. Some stars don't do it. Like you don't see, what is it, like Leonardo DiCaprio doing a lot of promotional stuff when he does a film. But this is crucial to the success of a film, is having stars hitting the beat and getting out there in front of camera and fans and promoting this stuff. So I think that is a strategic move to try to make sure this movie gets a good box office return.
David, there's a lot of people out there speculating that Dune was kind of one of those films that didn't need the huge promotional because of just how amazing the trailers are and people's knowing of Dune. But I just look at this again and I see two things. It tells me the strike is going to go on for a while, and I truly don't believe that we can trust any. As I said, I truly don't believe we can trust any of the dates that things are even getting moved to. I think we're at the point now where, unless it's on our screen in front of us, we have no idea when it's actually going to come out.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that it's a tell of the strike's going to last a long time. I just think we're past the point of the return of releasing it at the date that they expected to release it. I think the studios have contacted, or the representatives have tried to make a deal, and a deal wasn't struck. But the studios are, I think, actively trying to go to terms with the writers and actors. I think it's just the actors right now, or maybe it's just the writers, not the actors.
But both the writers and the actors.
Yeah, I think they're scrambling right now, and everything is getting pushed back. I think the Marvels kind of benefited actually from this, because I think they're getting more IMAX time at the theaters. So if you're a big fan of Carol Danvers and Miss Marvel and Photon, so yeah, you'll be able to watch them in IMAX for a couple more weeks, I believe. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the franchise Dune, and I think they do need advertisement. But it will be interesting to see what the box office response is by the general public, because Dune 1, I think, was more of like a curiosity. But I mean, it's been out on streaming, on physical media. Everyone has kind of wrapped their heads around it, that this is a big thing, because the cast is stacked. Denis Villeneuve is a great director. So it's just unfortunate that everything's getting pushed. And I agree that we can't trust any of these dates, not even for Star Wars. So it's going to be just one of those times where we just kind of wait and see, and where all the chips drop.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting going.
Can you imagine? Forward. Hold on. Can you just imagine going to a theater and seeing the new Star Wars movie and not having any stars promote it? How weird would that be?
That would be strange.
Yeah.
But none of the films have been shot, so I don't even think that's a possibility unless they.
No. But I'm just telling you I'm just telling you the impact of a movie not being supported by any appearances of its cast. You know. So,
yeah. Blue Beetle just went through that kind of with no talk show appearances, which is sad. And also the same thing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. We actually did an interview on the other podcast I work on, Can Density Geekcast, with Leonardo, and he was super hyped, and the movie was good, but he wasn't able to go on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, and he's a very charismatic guy, and he was actually the kid in The Fabelmans. He's worked with Spielberg, so his career is like super bright, and we just felt really sad for him that he couldn't promote Ninja Turtles and Blue Beetle as well. That's a cultural impact for me, because I'm Mexican American and the main character was Mexican American. So I mean, we were all kind of expecting for that to be a moment. It was a moment for me personally, but I think in general it should have had its time in the spotlight, and unfortunately the spotlight was very dim on it, and the box office receipts kind of show that, and it's super unfortunate.
Ghostbusters quick response unit. By the way, is that my friend Chris? Just want to double check. He says, "I'm ready for a drought." Yeah, me too. Actually, I've been prepping for it. I'm going to catch up on some stuff. Hopefully, you know, it'd be fun though. Is maybe I think it'd be cool to have the theaters maybe show some old retro films. You know, get some people in the theaters and do that. Maybe, I don't know.
I just want to say too, I feel for all of the theater workers out there. You guys just feel like you're starting to come back from COVID and now this. And I just, for you guys out there, especially for us who enjoy the theater going experience, we just appreciate the work you guys put in at the theaters. Yeah. And, I hope this gets resolved soon for your guys' sake as well. So,
Chris, good to see you, by the way, man. Yeah. Thanks for chatting in.
I have another piece of news. If you follow Culture Clash, and I am a fan of professional wrestling. And Kevin, I know you're not really a fan of it. David, I don't know what your feelings are on it, but there was a huge loss of professional wrestling. If you followed social media at all in the last 24 hours, you've probably seen posts on this because it's been covered by ESPN, it's been covered by CNN, across the world. Wyndham Rotunda, otherwise known as Bray Wyatt, the WWE superstar who's actually been a WWE champion, passed away at the age of 36 due to a heart attack caused by COVID complications. This is a big hit. This was a professional wrestler who was not afraid to take chances with his characters. A lot of people were kind of thinking he was going to take the torch from The Undertaker, who's recently pulled into an era of full retirement, of being that kind of outlandish, mystical character that they would market. And from all accounts, too, this was one of the nicest people on the planet. And a lot of people are very shook by this. And I think part of the reason for that is, too, the man was only 36 years old and had 4 young children. And this is definitely going to be a loss. In fact, as we're recording this, the latest episode of WWE SmackDown is currently airing, and it is a complete tribute episode to Wyndham Rotunda, also known as Bray Wyatt. And he was a very unique character in WWE, and WWE has become such a lexicon in a fandom, and is one of the hugest fandoms out there. And I felt we would be remiss if we didn't bring this up and just say our thoughts and prayers are with his family, his children, and so forth. So that is a big loss for the wrestling community. So finally, I'm glad I have you here for this too, David. Our last piece of news is I actually want to talk about a little trailer that dropped a couple days ago. Zack Snyder has a new project, Rebel Moon on Netflix, Part 1 premiering December 22nd. They dropped the first trailer for this. Now, there are a lot of rumors out there that this was a script Zack Snyder had intended to be a Star Wars film and pitched as a Star Wars film, which obviously didn't work out, but he pitched the movie to Netflix and it is coming out, and Netflix is going all in on this. So guys, I'm going to ask you, have you watched the trailer, and what were your impressions of the trailer? Kevin, start with you.
I did. I thought it was interesting. And I thought it was also interesting, too, that they've committed to Part 2 coming out, I guess, 2 years later, I think it is, or next year.
Next year.
Yeah, so the 24th, I guess.
Yeah, sometime in March, I believe. March or April.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
so I thought that was cool. I thought that was cool. That gives them enough to kind of world build. And, of course, I've heard that this was based on a Star Wars movie that he wanted to do, and that didn't happen, so he decided to make it into his own thing here. I'll be checking it out. It looks cool. It's got some cool characters in it. I have no idea what's going on in the trailer. But yeah, what about you, David? What do you think? Rebel Moon, December 22nd, Netflix.
Definitely looks interesting. Definitely looks like there's a lot of Star Wars, Dune influence on it. A mishmash of a lot of sci-fi that we love. The story that I've pieced together about Rebel Moon was George Lucas actively recruited Zack Snyder to do a Star Wars film, and then the Disney acquisition happened. Zack Snyder kind of stuck around, and he made his pitch to Kathleen Kennedy, and he wanted to do an R-rated Star Wars film, and Kathleen Kennedy said, "No, we're not going to do that." So that's when he took his idea to Netflix, and I think Lucasfilm gave him the option to just shop it, and Netflix bought it, and he's going to do 2 movies, feature-length movies, starring Sophia Boutella and Ed Skrein and Charlie Hunnam and Anthony Hopkins as a droid or a robot, and there's lightsabers that are like on fire. They look really cool, very Visions-esque. And I'm a Zack Snyder fan. I like his stuff. I maybe don't completely love his stuff, but I do like his ideas and his films. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And this is kind of like a quasi Star Wars film that's about to drop this year. It is rated R though, and I think there's going to be an unrated version released later on that's going to be more graphic and more adult. So I
wonder if they're going to release it on physical media. I'm kind of curious about that, or if Netflix is going to go, no, you're going to have to stream it on Netflix. I'm kind of curious.
Well, this is something too that I can see Netflix. They've done it with a few other of their films, giving it like a 1 week release in theaters or something like that as well. Because
That
That's
would be
great.
cool. I
Yeah.
would see this in the theater.
and as David went over some of the cast, Sophia Patella, obviously of the Mummy and Star Trek Beyond fame, Charlie Hunnam we know from a lot of things. Carrie Ewells is also in this. Jenna Malone is in this. Corey Stoll, Ed Skieran, Diamond Hunsow, and Zack Snyder favorite Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg in Justice League, is in this film as well. So I'm intrigued by what I saw in the trailer. I'm curious to see what's going to happen in this, and looking forward to it. So good fun, good fun sci-fi for Christmas. But guys, we got one more thing to talk about. We've seen a few things, but one in particular, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to buy it, stream it, or unsee it. And David, I am, as great as it's been here, have you here for Ahsoka and everything else. I am so glad you're here for this, because we are talking Blue Beetle, and I know you have been doing a lot with Blue Beetle on this. Tell our watchers and listeners out there some of the things you've been involved with Blue Beetle, because it's quite impressive.
So I'm working with Countdown City Geekcast, and I live in South Texas. So there's a very predominant Mexican American community in South Texas because we're right next to the border of Mexico. And I'm Mexican American. I'm second generation, so I kind of grew up in, and I've seen a lot of how the family is, and it's incredible to see that on screen. All the references, all the Easter eggs, all the dialogue that you hear that George Lopez make, and what's interesting is he is straight up cursing in Spanish, and they don't bleep it, and sometimes they don't put the subtitles for those words, and I guess that's how they got around the MPAA somehow, some way. But the character that Xolo Mariduena plays is a Mexican American character by the name of Jaime Reyes, and in the comic book, it took place in El Paso, Texas, which is 8 hours from where I live. Texas is like a country within a country. So yeah, it takes a long time to get there. And to get to California, you have to drive through El Paso. But yeah,
I've been to El Paso. I know exactly where it is.
Nice. And you can see Mexico from the highway. It's right on the border of Mexico and New Mexico. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. And most of the cast was of Latino origin. Even Jenny, I believe she played a Caucasian character. Jenny Court, she played Susan Sarandon's niece, and I think Susan Sarandon was the only non-Latino actor in front of or behind the camera. And what what Kyle was referring to was, I went to an event in Austin, Texas, and the director, Angel Manuel Soto, was there. I met him, and that night we got to watch the film with him at Alamo Draft House in one of the newer Alamo Draft Houses in Austin that I hadn't been to yet. So it was so cool to go there, and completely right with doing a fan event for a movie releasing. There was so much swag, like pulled directly from the trailer, from the movie. We got the big belly boxes with an actual scarab pin inside, which is super cool. It's my favorite pin of all time now, and I think I got like 3 of them. And they were sponsored by Toyota, and I drive it. I'm in a Toyota right now. I love Toyota. And they gave out comic books, posters, even like custom made Reese's in like triple digit heat, and they had like ice packs on them to keep them from melting, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, the director was there, and then Cully Hamner, who helped design the suit in the comics, lives in Austin, and he was just there randomly walking around. And my buddy Retro Ray from Countdown and Now Star Wars Stuff podcast, he noticed him and he approached him. We did an impromptu interview at the Austin fan event outside, and then of course, like I said, we went to Alamo Draft House, Mueller, and got to see the film. And then there was a fan event in San Antonio, Texas, a little bit down south, at the Arneson River Theater, and it was like dignitaries of San Antonio came out. None of the actors or writers, of course, because they're on strike, and they also gave out more swag. I got a bucket hat. We got fans, like electric fans, like really cool technological pieces of equipment, because you turn on the fan and it says Blue Beetle in LED, and it was like, wow, that's kind of wild. I've never seen so much swag just be given out. We got T-shirts. They had tacos that they were serving, which were really good.
Oh my
and,
God, that's awesome.
And at each place they had Blue Beetle juice. And I asked the bartenders how did they make it, and they said it was a combination of Powerade, lemonade, and Sprite. And I think at the San Antonio event it tasted better, and I think it just lacked the, I want to say the the Sprite. I think they took out the Sprite. Tasted so good. It was all free, and yeah, it was a wonderful time celebrating this movie that was predominantly Latino, and of course that's very close to me because I am Latino, I am Mexican American, and we don't often get to see predominantly Mexican American, Latino, Brazilian, Puerto Rican stuff on screen that's true to life. A lot of people have said that it's really a caricature of life, but no, I know these people, I've interacted with these people in my family, outside of my family, growing up. I'm 42 years old. This was very authentic for me. All the Easter eggs, it was a wonderful, wonderful thing to experience. And for it to be DC, I love DC. I love Batman. I love Superman. Blue Beetle, the costume, the character, I think would be a wonderful addition to James Gunn and Peter Safran's DCU. I hope to see it. Even if he
That
doesn't
seems
get
to be the plan.
even if he doesn't get a sequel, I would love to see him be sprinkled into other projects and maybe show up in Peacemaker or show up in Booster Gold, which he has a very cool history with in the comics. So it was just a very, very kind of benchmark thing for me and other Latinos that got to experience this, and something I'll never forget.
Now, okay, so real quick then, the movie itself. How did you feel about the movie itself? Because obviously DC's got an interesting history. This film kind of, in some ways, has hit a weird point when it came out. But the movie itself, did you enjoy the movie? Did you find the movie entertaining?
Yes, I found it very entertaining. I thought it was solid. It was an origin story. Blue Beetle is a very kind of obscure character for a lot of just like normal DC movie fans, and I didn't really know much about him. And once I learned about him and watched the movie with two different audiences, the first was just an incredible experience because I was sitting next to Ray and we were reacting to a lot of things that I think people of other cultures in the audience weren't reacting to, but stuff that was close to us, and all that interwoven into a kind of a traditional origin story for a superhero, with which was a different hero that we see, but he's kind of an amalgamation of Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman. So I mean, it's just it was an incredible thing to see, and the story was solid. It was a solid film. It was entertaining. Sholo shined as Jaime Reyes. Also, Bruna as well. Bruna Marquez. She shined as Jenny Cord, and I think they have really great careers. And also Jaime Reyes' sister Milagro. She was really funny. And definitely go see it. Support it. I know. $4 National Cinema Day is coming up on Sunday, so go see it then if you haven't seen it. And yeah, I definitely recommend you check it out before it goes to streaming. And I think it drops on streaming in September or something. But this is a DCU character. This is a James Gunn DCU character going forward. And show your support. I really want to see him. He's a cool character, even beyond the Latino stuff. He is a cool character, cool suit, cool abilities, a lot like Green Lantern as well. I failed to mention Green Lantern. So it's a combination of like Spider-Man, Green Lantern, and Iron Man, essentially. And he can fly. So there you go.
It's a very fun character. Now, Kevin, you kind of waited on seeing this until I saw it. You kind of asked me to let you know what I thought, and then you went to see it. And there was even a moment in this film that I was like, yeah, this is the Kevin Reitzel moment of of this film. But what were your impressions of Blue Beetle, Kevin?
Yeah, there's a certain Motley Crue song that came on that was definitely my moment there. So what really stood out for me in this movie is the topic of family. And I really was drawn to that. I was born and raised in Southern California. Some of my best friends in school are Mexican American. There's a reason why I love that food as well, because I always went to their parties. It's also the reason why I love mayonnaise on my hot dog. Yes.
Oh wow.
It's a Southern California thing, basically. And so I really enjoyed it. I loved the whole family, how they backed each other up and they helped at the end. And George Lopez was great. But the mom, I'm like, she looks really familiar. I realized that Elpida Carrillo, she was the woman that survived in the original Predator film. Yep. I'm like, totally looked familiar. And I thought Bruna was great. Everyone was just good in this, and I really loved how they came together as a family, and that was kind of a theme in this movie. And Zolo, is that how you say his name? How do you say his name?
Kind of like Han Solo, but Sholo, maybe with like an H after the S.
Sholo, yeah. Of course, from Cobra Kai, he was really, really good in this film. Perfectly cast, if you asked me. Yeah. And I love that it was an origin story as well. I was not familiar with the character at all. I went in with low expectations, didn't know what to expect, came out really enjoying the film. So, yeah.
For me, the thing with this movie is this movie had heart. And that's something I feel like most of the DC films of the last few years haven't had that. Aquaman had some moments of it. The original Wonder Woman did. But this movie really had a lot of heart to it. And I think they did a phenomenal job in their casting. Solo was phenomenal as Jaime Reyes and fit the bill perfectly. I gotta say, Bruna was kind of just, and how she looked in this film was giving me some young Jordana Brewster Drive vibes a little bit as well.
I can see that. Yeah.
But overall, I mean, Lopez is wonderful in this movie. And the great thing about what George Lopez did in this movie is he's probably the biggest name in this movie outside of maybe Susan Sarandon. He has his moments, but he could have easily stolen this movie, and he didn't. And he could have stolen this movie unintentionally because of who he is, how fun he is, and how fun his character was. But every time he was on screen, he had his moment. But then they did a great job of shifting it back to Sholo as Jaime or his sister, who I thought was hilarious in this as well. Well, I also loved it was very comic accurate, which I think was very well done. The suit looked incredible and was sharp. The other thing I liked was the fact that they did pay homage to the Ted Kord Blue Beetle. You had that original suit there. And if you watch the closing credits, there is a hint that if there is a sequel, we could see Ted Kord come back. And I just got to throw this out there because I've seen this online from a few people. There is a push to get Jason Sudeikis to play Ted Kord. And that would be just phenomenal because that would be such a perfect fit for that character based off of his comic book history. But yeah, I'm going to tell the same thing. If $4 movie day is coming up, if you have been on the fence about this, don't be on the fence. Go see this. This movie is a lot of fun. It's a great family film to take everybody to go see. It's one of the more fun comic book movies that honestly has come out in the last year or so. I would say just there's something about it. You walk out and you feel good, and that's something that I absolutely loved. And so, yeah, for me, Blue Beetle is a buy it. I will be buying this movie when it comes out. I cannot wait to revisit this. And I really hope that when all is said and done, they take into account all the unusual circumstances surrounding Blue Beetle and they greenlight a sequel. I think James Gunn, I would love to see him in Peacemaker. That Blue Beetle character has a very interesting comic history with Peacemaker. And I would love to see Blue Beetle play off of John Cena's Peacemaker because I think they could have a lot of fun with that. And I would love to see Uncle Rudy meet Peacemaker. I'm just saying that. But guys, we need to wrap up this episode of Culture Clash here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We thank you for joining us on our YouTube channel. If you've joined us for the live feed, thank you so much. A shout out to all of our wonderful listeners out there. Thank you, David, for coming on short notice and doing it through mobile. I know not the ideal situation, but we are glad to have you here always, and hopefully you'll get you back for some more Ahsoka later on in the season. Kevin, phenomenal job. Did all the work on getting this show set up. As always, thank you so much, my brother. Appreciate all the work you put in to it. And thank you to our fans. There's some great ways to find this show, not only here on the YouTube channel, but if you are listening on podcasts, fpnet.podbean.com. That's the home of all of our audio podcasts and our master feed for all of our shows. You can also check out our Facebook page, Fandom Podcast Network. Also check out our good buddies over at What a Piece of Junk, our dedicated Star Wars show. Kevin, you just joined them for their live show the other night, talking all things Ahsoka. That's on our YouTube channel, and the audio podcast version of that has just been released. Please too find all of our shows, whether on all your major podcast catchers, whether it's podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. I'm Kyle. You can follow me on Twitter, X, Threads, Instagram. You can find me on Twitter and X at AKyleW and on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
On Twitter /X, whatever it wants to be, Instagram and Threads, you can find me at Spartan_Phoenix.
And David, we know we can find you on the Star Wars Stuff podcast. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, Star Wars Stuff Podcast, pretty much everywhere on all the socials. X, Red Stuff Pod, Instagram, Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We have a Patreon, Star Wars Stuff Podcast, 2187. We're also on TikTok. You can also email us at starwarsstuffpodcast@gmail.com if you like. And yeah, I just want to thank all the listeners, all the audio listeners. We've gotten a lot of people to listen to our pre-show that Kyle was on, our post-show, and our breakdown video. We got a lot of responses back from those shows. I just want to thank everyone that's listening here as well. And thank you guys for bringing me on. You two are some of my favorite podcasters, and I love coming on this show.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, it's been cool to have you guys help and support the Star Wars Stuff podcast over, it seems like, years now. I'll invite you guys on, and you guys come on and do a terrific job. And I'm just glad that podcasting has brought us all together, and we're all kind of friends here, and we get to talk about the stuff we love. So yeah, thank you.
Shout out to Chris, by the way, in the chat. I know he's a little lonely in there, but thank you for participating, Chris. Appreciate you. Miss you, buddy.
Thank you to everybody out there. We will be back next week with more Culture Clash Live, covering everything that is Ahsoka. Until then, as we always say, respect each other, and most importantly, no matter what it is, enjoy your fandom. Good night, everybody.
Good night.